Welcome back to the Papa Shrill Nose podcast. We're back talking football today as we got Ray stopping by the show this week and just getting into a lot of interesting discussions actually regarding running backs and salary cap and what guys are getting paid, things like that. Jumping into a little bit of off-season news as well as it just continues, right? The NFL never stops. It's always plenty to talk about year-round with the NFL. Talked about the schedule released in the last episode regarding football, and with Ray coming on, obviously a Ravens fan, Lamar Jackson fan, whatever he wants to call it. Rocking with the Ravens though, while his Patriots are on a downswing. So we get into some Ravens talk as well, and just AFC North in general, but. Before we get into that, I wanted to go into the Rashee Rice situation, as there's been a little bit of an update to that. All allegations with the whole incident in the club with the photographer have been dropped and taken back. So that hopefully is kind of dead in the water, essentially, with that whole situation going on with Rashee Rice, and we'll just have to face whatever he's going to get from the league handed out suspension-wise for the hit-and-run accident, as that's still ongoing, of course, with that situation. But at least a little bit of good news for the Chiefs. Again, we talked about it last episode, just constantly staying in the headlines and the off-season from hell for the PR team for the Kansas City Chiefs, really, in the off-season. But really don't want to take too much time. Me and Ray got into a lot. It was quite a lengthy conversation. So just before we jump into the conversation, just remind, if you're enjoying the podcast and want to follow along, again, smash that like button for this episode if you enjoy all this football talk and getting into more than just the Chiefs, as usually I'm staying on Chiefs-centric content. But again, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel on YouTube, follow along on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. But without any more time taken up, let's get into the conversation. Without further ado, let me welcome back in Ray to the podcast.
What's the deal?
What up, bro? How you been?
I've been good, man. About yourself?
Pretty good. Lots to talk about this off season. We ain't spoke since, or at least on record, we ain't spoke since the AFC Championship game right before that.
Yeah. Dark days a couple months ago. You know what I mean?
Hey, it happens. Although an elite rant on MVS by Ray over on Twitter, that was pure gold.
Oh yeah, I would say joyous day to see that man cut from the squad. You know what I mean? Where did he end up going, bro? Buffalo.
Buffalo. Yeah, I thought the same thing. I was like, come on, bro. Buffalo, really? Like, I get it, but
Hey,
hey, that receiver room is in need of anything.
it's like, what's the craziest part though? Like that's a bad receiver room, but as a Pats fan, I've seen worse. You know what I mean? I've seen so much worse.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, we saw just about as bad last year, it seems like.
I would say, yeah, with what Stephon Diggs phoning in basically what half the second half of the season. Gabe Davis is Gabe Davis, and what for the only I guess what consistent guy game in game out. That was more so towards the end of the season was who was that? Khalil Shakur.
Khalil Shakir, Dalton Kincaid, still Dawson Knox
Oh
too. But I was
yeah.
referring to the Chiefs. The
Oh
Chiefs might have been worse last year, and that had MVS on the squad too. But it was, I don't know, Rashee Rice's emergence there at the end of the year.
are you saying worse than the Pats or just worse than what the Buffalo room is looking like?
Oh no, worse than what the Buffalo room has to offer. We ain't touching the
Oh,
Pats. Like you
okay,
got to go
cool.
way back to find one of them receiver rooms with the Chiefs, I
Okay,
think.
cool. Because I was just
Yeah.
like, hey, bro.
No. Y'all got it bad. Y'all got it bad. Like,
Nah,
so but
you
just
should have
going
seen.
into that with kind of talking about the Ravens, and now it's also been announced, obviously opening night, September 5th, Chiefs Ravens will show down at Arrowhead for the first game of the year.
the funny part is like I'm not even gonna be able to take much joy in that victory. Just to keep no, because like the worst part is because it's like what you've been saying, like the Chiefs aren't really who they are until like week 10. So like you guys are still gonna be like picking up the pace, kind of like still a little hungover from playing a full season all over again. We're gonna be a little bit more fresh. We've retooled offensively, outside of a couple spots at wide receivers. So like I'm not saying it's gonna be a blowout, but I could see it being like a 27. I'd say what 27-10, 27-15 type victory. Nothing spectacular, but like nothing to write home about. It'd be good morale to start off the season, but I'm just kind of worried about like once again postseason.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. And even last year, it seemed like the Chiefs didn't even hit their stride until the playoffs started. Like, I mean, it was Christmas Day, that Raiders game, that they just looked terrible.
Yeah, like that's why I was just like, oh, y'all think y'all really gonna two-peat? No way. And then a whole nother team shows up in the playoffs. I'm like, all right,
That's a
bro.
fact.
I'm kind of tired of the BS at this point.
I think everybody that's not a Chiefs fan is at this point.
Yeah, because like there was no on paper, there's no way that y'all should have beat some of these teams
No way.
on
Yeah.
paper.
Yeah, that's a
But
fact. Well,
it's the
transitioning from
intangibles.
23 to 24, how do you feel about just the Ravens in general heading into 24? Because I mean, that's still a stacked division, even with obviously the Bengals, but even the Steelers, and then I don't know, the Browns are a weird team
And
because obviously
I,
Flacco led them to the playoffs at the end of the year, but so I don't even know what to think about the Browns, but in that division with the Steelers and the Bengals, I mean,
the worst part is with the Browns, they're annoyingly good. They are a team that should be like 8-8, but they'll still eke out like an 11-6 record, or I meant to say like 8-9, but like yeah, they'll be like 11-6, get into the playoffs as a wild card, upset somebody, and then just drop the ball. So like there's no free wins in that division. Like everything is literally earned.
no, there really isn't any free wins in that division at all. And then you also have Patrick Queen flipping over to the Steelers.
Yeah, which makes things a little bit more interesting. Only thing is, the only thing that's really holding back the Steelers, in my opinion, is offensive capability. If they can really put points on the board consistently, I, I don't have that much like faith in us making it past like excuse me, the division round.
The Ravens.
Yeah,
So you're saying the offense has to step up this year?
yeah, because like I don't think we'll be able to lean on the defense as much, especially with the loss of what is that man's name? Was it is it Ben Johnson, the DC for well the former DC for the Ravens that went to Seattle?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's definitely a tough loss heading into. I agree with you. I think the Ravens are definitely going to have to be more offensive centric. And I mean, I don't know about the receiving core, how much help they really did themselves there, but obviously you add Derrick Henry and adding him with Keaton Mitchell, which Keaton Mitchell was a guy I really wanted the Chiefs to get heading into that draft, just looking at the prospects last year.
nah, yeah, I remember when you were doing a lot of your pre-draft talk and all of that. Like that was a guy that was pretty high on your list. So I'm excited. It should be like a thunder and lightning type of situation in Baltimore. So that's what I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of which, I'm gonna look up his contract because what did Derrick Henry get?
Oh man, don't have me lying. I feel like it was a 2-year deal.
2 years, 16 million, so 8 million,
Uh,
8 million a year.
yeah, I'm gonna say, I think that's a really fair contract, especially for a guy that may be heading towards the twilight of his career, but he still has some juice in the tank. Uh,
Yeah.
I that backfield should be kind of spooky.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Is anyone else around for the Ravens that was there before? So I think Gus Edwards left, and so did J.K. Dobbins, which,
Feel like they both went to the Chargers.
oh, you're right. I knew Edwards did. Yeah, J.K. Dobbins, because he visited Kansas City and then
Mhm.
visited L.A. and then he ended up going there. Yeah, no,
Now,
you're
that
right.
would have been a pickup for y'all though. That would have been a hell of a pickup.
I thought so too. I thought so too.
Especially like y'all could have signed him for probably dirt cheap, just a quick like year deal, maybe 2.5, maybe something like that. Uh, and yeah, like whatever. Excuse me, Pacheco is kind of falling short. He pick up the slack right there.
Yeah, that's a fact. Interesting. So Derrick Henry, going back to him, has an additional 4 million in bonuses tied to incentives and 500,000 for 1,200 yards, another 500K for 1,500 yards, 500K for 13 touchdowns. If he bumps up to 15 touchdowns, another 500K, and then another 500 if he rushes for 1,000 yards, and the Ravens win the Super Bowl.
Hmm. And so that's all. Well, excuse me. Most of those were for rushing, not for scrimmage yards, right?
Exactly, all rushing. That's
That's
a that's a parlay, is what that is.
no, you're not playing, bro. That really is like, man,
They tied a
he is
parlay into the
gambling on.
contract. That's
It's
crazy.
legal gambling, bro. That's
No,
crazy.
literally. Hey,
But
NFL contracts be gambling on yourself, essentially.
telling you, whenever you really look into the particulars into a lot of these deals, yeah, that's what they basically are. They're gambling, like it's legal gambling on themselves,
No, that's a big
big time.
fact. And this is a big part of why I wanted you to come on for this podcast because I saw you repost on Twitter Wale's kind of little rant about running back contracts and this is the conversation me and you have had I don't know how many times over the years just about running backs in general and just the fact that not everybody's King Henry.
No, no, because for every King Henry, there's a Philip Lindsay out there. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Uh, those guys that never secure the bigger contract, and so I don't know. As you know, us both of us have been union members. Feel like fair day's pay for fair day's work, and
Facts.
these guys are overperforming and being underpaid, in my opinion. Now, yeah, can we just go out here and give the most money to the most injury prone position? Absolutely not. That makes no sense from a business perspective. But there's no way that you should be getting a all pro season out of a guy for $1.5 million on a rookie contract.
That's a fact.
Like just
Or
ethically
especially like
speaking,
these,
that's just
like Philip Lindsay is a perfect example. Undrafted free agent came in to the Broncos and ran with it and had an amazing season.
I mean, or you what him? I mean, I think one of my favorite stories about undrafted guys doing well is what's my man's name? Oh God, he just went to the Commanders from the Chargers. Austin Eckler. Sorry.
Yeah,
What I think he was a sixth, seventh rounder. He was a really late pick. Worked his way up, got to the money, but what he had to do to get to the money, and as soon as they gave him the money, the production dropped.
yeah,
Like,
and that's how that
okay,
always happens with running backs, and that's another
every
reason
time.
why people are so scared to, give them the big money. Another one, just to give one more example, my favorite running back of all time, Priest Holmes, undrafted free agent, and had the greatest like 2 season run any running backs ever had.
Sorry, I accidentally hit the mute button.
Oh, you're good.
No, that's facts. Excuse me. But like, yeah, with guys like them, and then as soon because what I guess his replacement, Larry Johnson, as soon as he got paid, what happened?
Right
Injuries,
downhill.
lacking all of that. So I understand the concern with it, which is why I think they should front load a lot of these guys' contracts since they have the lowest lifespan out of any NFL player.
Yeah. Exactly, front load or, and this is something, me and you went back and forth on it, heavily incentivized. I think the rookie deals, even undrafted free agents, I mean, you should be compensated if you rush for 1,000 yards on a deal where you're getting paid the bare minimum. You should be compensated, and there's a lot to go into that because where does that money come from? Does that hit your cap the next year? Does that end up being dead cap? Kind of, things like that to get down to the nitty gritty. And I mean, I don't even care about going that deep into it. Just the simple fact is these guys are not getting paid what they're worth because, a guy like Todd Gurley, like you mention all the time, where, never really got to, get his full worth in a contract.
No, simply because his body failed him, which isn't really his fault, isn't the organization's fault, any of that. But what is it? I was kind of thinking too. It's a shame how that's one of the few positions that doesn't rise with the market. Like the market doesn't really dictate what they get paid because
Oh,
you
that's a
have
fact.
guys. Yeah, because like there's no way that there are middle of the pack receivers out, excuse me, just getting over. Well, I don't want to say overpaid. I'm not trying to pocket watch nobody, but they are being paid much more than their running back counterparts who are shouldering much more of the load and produce so much more for a team. And they're seeing a fraction of what those guys get paid. I don't think that's fair. I think there should be a standardized practice when it comes to running backs. And I don't think that's that different.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree. You said receivers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because look at a lot of those guys out of the backfield. I mean, we were just talking about Keaton Mitchell. One of my favorite parts of his game is the receiving aspect to it, and we saw it last year. I mean, he had some really huge plays off of a screen or catching the ball. So I mean, yeah, when you get a guy or Eckler, we were talking about Eckler too. When you get a guy like Austin Eckler, Keaton Mitchell, or um, Kareem Hunt for the Chiefs the first few years, absolutely, and the receiving game was huge. So when you get a guy, that's able to come in and play both roles essentially, I mean, you even see some running backs getting put out there lining up as a receiver.
Oh yeah, I mean, what one of our favorite guys to watch, fantasy hero David Johnson, who just retired, I think, what about a week or so ago. That was one of the biggest parts of his game.
Absolutely. Yeah. I actually didn't see that he just retired. But yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest parts of his game and one reason why he was such a threat in fantasy football those few years.
Yeah. And then the worst part is what, even when that dude actually got paid, it still wasn't like a payday. Like the only running back I can think of the, I guess, more modern era in the last 10 years, that got paid well was Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah. And
Because,
especially
what,
going to the receiving aspect, the way that Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase are about to set the market is going to be very fascinating to see.
yeah. And the craziest part is, and like, that's the thing that like trips me out the most is the fact that like receivers, they can constantly reset the market. We've literally been watching a reset of the market since what, 2020 or was it 2021 when Devontae Adams got paid all that money to go to the Raiders?
I think that was 20, I think that was 2022, actually.
Was it? I swear,
Yeah,
I
because I think
thought
he's
he's
only
been
been
there
there for
longer.
2 years. Because his first year with the Raiders was what 2 years ago when he had that on Thursday Night Football where, there's that whole incident with the cameraman or whatever.
Oh yeah, at Arrowhead. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, him, then Tyreek, then he came right after and reset the market, and now we're about to watch the market reset again. And even then, when we're talking about guys that are borderline top 15 receivers in the league, the Calvin Ridleys, they're still getting paid handsome.
That's a fact.
What he just signed to Tennessee for what was it 80 to 90 mil or something crazy for like 4 to 5 years?
Yeah, it's something crazy like that. I'm about to look it up right now. 4 year,
And
92
so
million, and that includes 46.9 fully guaranteed.
now that's something else that I that's probably not for this pod, probably for another day. But yeah, the guarantees on the contract, that's the one real sticking point I got with the NFL.
No, that's a fact because you look at some of these contracts. That was one in the Tyreek deal that I looked at and looking through it. He's not making like that much money when it like in comparison to what it says, what the headline reads. These headlines are
Mm-hmm.
awesome and great, but when you really look at the contract, it's like none of this is guaranteed. And Tyreek Hill has, I think it's like 2 years at the end of his contract where he's getting paid like 46 and $50 million on a cap hit. There's no way he's playing under that in Miami. There's no way. They would
Yeah,
cut him before they let him play under that. And then what you've just got some dead cap that none of that's tied to guaranteed money anyways, so it doesn't matter. I think your dead cap's just going to be the bonus that's
no,
dispersed throughout the contract.
yeah, no, that's fact. Uh, and so yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like they get to kind of play these weird money games that I don't think other leagues get to do because you never hear about this with the NBA, NHL, shoot, uh, MLB.
I was
What?
about to
Because
say
they,
MLB. I don't think there's anything other than guaranteed money in Major League
yeah, like
Baseball.
no, your contract is your contract. You get paid what we say you get paid. Which I understand those rules. You know the arbitration rules. My bad. I'm going on a tangent. Let me get us off of that.
No, it's
But
cool. It's cool.
cause, yeah, because what Devontae Adams he set the market with 141. Then Tyreek came right after and set it for like what was it 150, 152 or something crazy like that.
Yeah, and AJ Brown was somewhere in the middle.
Oh yeah, but and I hate to say it, AJ Brown and Devontae Smith might have some of the better contracts I've seen because more of their money is actually guaranteed. It may be
Yes.
smaller on on paper, but what they're actually seeing is very comparable to those other guys.
Exactly, because at the end of the day, what do you want? Do you want to get paid or do you want a headline? Like that's kind of what it comes down to. And I'm sure that goes back to the
Yeah.
agent as well, because and I don't know how many, because I know Drew Rosenhaus has a million clients, but him being Tyreek's
Yeah.
agent, Drew Rosenhaus has always been a dude that's, he's going for that headline money.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah, that big perceivable money. When
exactly,
perception isn't everything on that.
exactly.
Because yeah, what the the type of money that Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase are about to command, is sickening.
Sickening. No, they
Like
are about to hit somebody over the head.
yeah, which yeah, what? Because in Cincinnati, that I man, I can't see his contract being anything under a 160, 170.
Yeah.
I just can't see it. I can't see it. I don't think he'd take anything less either.
Yeah, especially
Matter of
looking
fact,
at that market. Yeah,
yeah, and then him, Justin Jefferson. Look, if Minnesota ended up coughing out a $200 million contract for that guy, I'd say, wow, that's kind of egregious, but I understand.
yeah, with Justin Jefferson, I think and this might just be my opinion, but I do feel like he's almost on a level on his own at receiver right now, or has been in the last
I,
couple of years. And to look at these other guys, I mean, AJ Brown's 32 per year right now. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 30 a year. Tyreek, 30 a year. Devontae Adams, 28. Cooper Kupp, 26.7. Devontae Smith, 25 APY. DK Metcalf, 24. I mean,
yeah, no, he's about to go for 40.
you know, and then you're also talking about the age of these guys 27, AJ Brown, 25, Amon Ra, which I think Justin Jefferson is probably right around that 25, but Tyreek's 30, Devontae Adams 32, Cooper Kupp 31. Like, you got some guys in their 30s that are making this kind of money.
Still commanding that type of money. Yeah.
And I
And
mean, Jamar Chase could probably do the same thing.
yeah, because what, Jamar Chase is like 25?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. So he's like 25. Yeah, yeah. So these guys are, yeah,
24
the
years old,
market.
Justin Jefferson. 24.
Correct.
So he'll
Good.
turn 25 in June. Mm.
He'll turn 25 in 2.
That cap space, that's his.
Yeah, like that. Like go ahead, just like write his name like in that big blank space where you think you got cap space. That's him.
That's the kind of dude almost like, here's the take some ownership. Like
Yeah.
relax. Like we need that cap space.
The
And
craziest
Jamar
part is,
Chase is the exact same way. He'll be 25 March 1st.
oh, next year.
Oh, next year. Yeah. Damn, I didn't even put that
Oh,
together. Yeah, I guess
oh
he came out
wow,
a year after Justin Jefferson.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, and see, and that kind of like lays into the issue, right? And most of those guys, a lot of their money isn't what's the name? Guaranteed.
Yeah.
Or excuse me, it isn't guaranteed and it isn't incentive heavy either though. That's the thing.
Right. Well, and AJ Brown, man, 96 total value on his contract. 84 guaranteed. That's
Hold
crazy.
on. You say that one more time?
84 of his $96 million are guaranteed.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, no, that man has a good contract. That's a good contract
Meanwhile,
right there.
meanwhile, uh, because like I said, what the biggest contract was Ezekiel Elliott, right?
Hmm.
And God, hold on, give me 1 second. I'm about to look up his contract.
For comparison, just while you're looking that up, Christian McCaffrey is making
Mm-hmm.
16 million a year APY. And I mean, I feel like you could argue he adds just as much as any of those receivers do. And what like Debo, that's actually a fascinating, you know, argument because look at Debo, what he argued for. He's getting 23.80 APY. And one of his big things that he argued about in his contract negotiations was on, hey, I'm also a running back. And it's like, well, how doesn't that work for running backs? Because how many, like how efficient is Christian McCaffrey in the pass game? Alvin Kamara, same thing. How
Yeah,
how huge are they a part of the passing game? You're talking about they're making half the money.
which it almost makes you want to think like, oh, is this positionless football? Because if that's the case, are we just gonna start coming up with standard contracts for everybody?
If I was a running back, I would argue that to death. Hey, I'm a skill player. They're a skill player. We're all the same. We're skill players.
That and the worst part is because I don't think they have proper backing from the NFL Players Association.
Probably not.
And so it would make them hard for them basically to demonstrate why they're so necessary.
That's a fact.
Because what? Oh yeah, like what? That meant, and this was a 6 year deal, which is kind of insane to think about. In 2019, Ezekiel Elliott signed a 6 year deal worth $90 million, but only with 50 mil guaranteed.
Just barely over half the contract.
Yeah, because what they ended up cutting him in 22, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah, because he just spent the 1 year with the Patriots
Mm-hmm.
and now back to Dallas.
Right back. And what? Most of that money was put on what dead cap? Would you say?
More than likely, yeah, he's got 2 million this year.
And it's like they can just keep kind of playing these nasty games because what uh that averages out about almost what 14 13 to 14 million a year with the
Yes.
50 mil guaranteed. That you know you know and like this was a guy that was kind of like far and away like the running back 1A for at least a couple years.
Absolutely. And Ezekiel Elliott, man, he's not even 30 yet. But
Hold on.
he's 29.
Yeah, you're right. He's not, and that too, the usage of these guys, whether we're talking about in the pass game or the sheer amount of carries that these guys get, because he was one of the last true bell cow backs.
No, that's absolutely true. Absolutely true.
Because what this man was getting 25, 30 carries a game. Not to mention how
Yes.
many looks he was getting in the passing game as well. That come on. And now, like I said, I get it. It's an injury riddle position, which is why I say their contracts need to be a little bit. Sounds wrong, but theirs needs to be a little bit more unfair on the beginning part of their careers.
Oh yeah. And yeah, like what we're saying, whether you I think it's hard to pay, a guy just straight up front that you don't know, like an undrafted free agent or, like raising the stock of that, running back contract in general, no matter where you get picked. Because look at a guy like Pacheco who got drafted in the seventh round and, is already Super Bowl champion and, has done great things for the Chiefs. But if you, I just feel like that's why you have to incentivize it essentially. If you put heavy incentives in it to where a guy could make 5 to 10 million, because I mean, if you're paying the top flight running backs around 15, we'll say 13 to 15 million, right? APY,
Mm-hmm.
then you should be able to pay a guy that is playing on that level at least 5 to 10 million just for the incentives of, oh, hey, you got 15 touchdowns this year. Here's an extra $1 million, or, you got 1,500 rushing yards.
Yeah,
Here's another,
and
1 million, 2 million. You know what I mean?
a
Just
couple million, yeah, because
exactly.
like I'm saying, like I'm not saying like, oh, hey, break the bank for these guys because like that's
Right.
kind of the name of the game. You want to get most out of your rookies while they're on a rookie deal, then you pay them later, or you try to figure out a way to get somebody else to pay them. I get it. I know it's a nasty game, but it's part of the game. It's a game within the game.
Yes.
But I still don't think that it's fair that leads to very unfair compensation for guys because you're trying to kill a position essentially, and that's a position that is it's so integral to the game. One can't
Absolutely.
exist without the other.
Absolutely. I mean, and we get it. It's a pass heavy league now. This is what, the NFL we live in now, but you can't be paying these guys that are making just as much of an impact on the team because I mean, look at the Chargers with Eckler. I mean, if they don't have Austin Eckler, that team would have never really
Thanks.
competed like they did in the last few years, right? So why are we paying him still half the money that a receiver is going to get? I can guarantee you Keenan Allen was making twice what Austin Eckler was making, probably.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Don't even have to like. I feel like that's one of those things where we don't even have to look it up to back it up.
Right. Exactly. So I don't know. It's definitely tough, and that position is just a tough one to assess to give again, Ezekiel Elliott. Let's go back to that for a second. He's 29, and in our eyes, he's 47.
Yeah, like he's getting really close to to the twilight of his career.
Absolutely. And to think like the first thing I thought when the Cowboys brought him back, I just thought, for what? Like I mean, that dude is gonna kill over, running for the Cowboys next year. And then just looking at that, I honestly didn't even know he was 29. But then looking at that, even just the perception we have behind running backs, because that's a position that it doesn't, like once your abilities start to slide just a bit with age, like just a smidge,
Just a
you're
smidge.
done. You're done.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Once
so
you don't
fast,
have that
so
little bit
quick.
of yeah, because these guys age in dog years,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
No, that's a fact. That's a good way to put it because yeah, how many guys have we seen have an all pro season and just for the next year to have 400 or 500 yards and only played 9 games and you know.
Bro. Because like I mean, the list just kind of goes on and on whenever you think about those guys: the Peyton Hillises, the Le'Veon Bells, the Larry Johnsons. Like I'm
There's a
Todd
lot
Gurley
more of
because like
those than there are Derrick Henrys.
yeah, the Derrick Henrys, Earl Campbell's, Eric Dickerson's. You know what I mean? These like longevity backs. Longevity
Hmm.
backs don't really exist anymore. Like Derrick Henry, it really is the last of a dying breed. This man has been good for like 7 years straight, like really good for 7 years straight. Meanwhile, what I'll take that back just a little bit because even Alvin Kamara,
Yeah.
But like once again though, those guys are like two of like last of a dying breed. I don't see any guys coming out or coming up that look like they can kind of carry the torch of a longevity back, a guy that's good for 10 plus years while being a bell cow back.
No, I agree. It's hard to imagine anybody can do that in this day and age. And even just to Henry and Kamara, two way different running backs too. Because the way Kamara gets it done versus how Henry, like the fact that Henry has hung on for as long as he has is very impressive because he's that, you know, mow you down kind of back, just run over everybody, and I'll carry three defenders on me for another 5, 6 yards.
Yeah. Because what I think what one of the last guys, one of those like smash mouth backs we seen in his career didn't really last that long, or at least the prime of it didn't last that long was Leonard Fournette.
Absolutely, yeah. And even
Just a
him,
straight
he's
up
kind of like another Ezekiel Elliott, where it was like he seemed like he was so much older than he was, and then you really look at his age, and you're like, and he still had a decent little run there as kind of a rotational back with Tampa Bay at the end. But you're absolutely right, yeah. These guys just fizzle out so fast at the running back
fast.
position that the receiver position doesn't have to worry about as much when it comes to it. And
No,
then also look at a guy like Jerick McKinnon. How many receivers are asked to sit in and chip? You probably count them on one hand in the league, I would say.
no BS, no
Receivers
BS.
don't block. That's just not something you see at all anymore. And you didn't see it a lot before. Let's talk about the last 20 years of the game ish. In the last 20 years, I mean, Hines Ward comes to mind as a receiver that was just out there blocking downfield. And other than
Yeah.
that, I mean, Larry
What the
Fitz, you
last
see throw down a block here and there.
Fitz, Edelman, Welker,
Edelman, yeah,
but it's more so for like the slot receiver guys. What Hudson Renfro does that from time to time.
yeah.
What was my guy? He was in Minnesota. Now he's in
Adam
Carolina.
Thielen,
Thielen. He's
yep.
one of those guys. But you and it sucks because it's kind of like a trend, right? Like what's the trend we notice in there? A little
The
bit
the
picture
route
challenge.
runners, the route
Yeah,
runners, you know.
the gym rats. You know what I'm saying? The film guys, if you will.
Yes,
We want to use
sir.
some coded language, but yeah. And so it sucks that that's what's asked out of them.
Yeah.
And yeah, you get
But
it.
to bring it back to the running back position, like Jerick McKinnon spent the whole second half of the season last year or 2 years ago now chipping for Orlando Brown. And I mean they did a lot of the same this year, when they're having trouble with Jawan Taylor and then the left side, you would see chips coming from, both sides. So it's like receivers aren't asked to do that, but running backs are. Running backs
Yeah,
are asked to run the ball. Running backs are asked to catch the ball. Running backs
yeah.
are asked to run routes. Oh, and running backs are asked to block. But we pay them half the money of a receiver. I don't understand.
Just doesn't make sense to me. Just doesn't make sense to me.
So that being said, I feel like we kind of covered that, but I feel like that was a conversation that we absolutely needed to have on the pod. That
Oh, absolutely. Like,
yeah, we
I
hadn't
feel
get to, because I don't know if we ever touched on that on Showbanks ever.
we did, but briefly. It was never as in depth as we
Right.
we just did it today. Like, we listed multiple examples, multiple guys, and a more solution based discussion as opposed to just kind of bringing up the problem. Like, yeah, we was bringing awareness to it, but what is some viable ways that this can change or at least be proposed for change?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So anything else? What's maybe your biggest takeaway of the offseason? We're finally here. OTAs have started. Speaking of Justin Jefferson, he was not at OTAs. I did see on a headline, nobody saw him, as we talked about him a little bit earlier, but what really leapt out to you, Ray, this offseason?
Oh,
I bet I just put you on the spot like that.
no, you good, man. No, you good. You good, bro. To be honest with you, sometimes you kind of forget the NFL execs and all of this and coaches and stuff. The guys like us. Uh,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? The guys like us, because like sometimes you just kind of watch some baffling decisions that you just like, where's this going to lead us down the line? And it's just like, oh, we're just all humans making guesses, right? And trying to make the most intelligent guess. Because, what New York letting a generational running back? Oh God, we didn't even bring him up. How did we not bring up Saquon Barkley?
Saquon.
That's a misstep on on me. My bad. I'm the running back advocate, and I forgot about the guy. Um, but yeah, what that brother he just got paid, but even then, I still don't feel like he was fairly compensated neither for his time in New York or his tenure in Philly. I don't think he's
Well,
going to be fairly
and
compensated.
he's now the fourth highest APY, 12.5 and 26 guaranteed fully.
You see, all right, never mind. It makes the point for me.
Absolutely.
It makes the point for me. There's no way that a guy like that should make under 15 million a year. But I'm
There's
not going to
only two
digress
guys
on
that are
that.
making 15 or more a year running back wise. And that's Kamara and McCaffrey.
And the worst part is they're getting to the end part of those deals. So how much longer is that going to last?
That's a fact. They're both 20 void in 2026.
Shocker. But yeah, my bad. What is it? Philly, I think they kind of readjusted and retooled. A little worried about them next year. The NFC is not going to be a cakewalk. The Giants, I was definitely surprised that they didn't, make steps to move on from Daniel Jones. And the Falcons just really baffled me because it was like right there. They could have had who was it? They could have had Roma Dunze, couldn't they?
Yes, I believe so. Because
And
that
if
was
not, they could have
pick at
took
number 8.
Neighbors. Yeah.
Neighbors was already gone, I'm pretty sure, because that was to New
Oh yeah, he
York.
was at the sixth pick. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got me looking it up. Oh, that's what I needed. Because I think you're right. They could have had a Dunze.
Yep. And instead took his quarterback who is
Yeah,
older.
because the very next pick, that was pick 8. Very next pick at 9 was Roma Dunze to the Chicago Bears. I mean, yeah, they did
Yeah.
a big solid for the Bears.
Like and it's just like I get it. Armchair GM over here. I don't know nothing. I've never been in these buildings. I've never had to be, given the keys to an organization, but man, just something about that just did not feel wise because you just signed Kirk Cousins for an insane amount of money, which that was something I really meant to bring up is the fact that quarterbacks are the only guys that seem like they're getting guaranteed money. But
Personally, well, okay, not the guaranteed part, but just the way they get paid, I would definitely make the argument for it, essentially,
oh yeah,
because either side of the football, there's no more important position than the quarterback. And I just mean that as in, really, there's no one position on the defense that is as, important as the quarterback. Collectively, everybody is very important, but I don't
the
know.
only
I mean, I
one,
think a premium is put on edge rushers, I would say. Just because I mean, if you don't have time to throw the ball, doesn't matter what your
funny enough,
secondary is doing.
yeah. Funny enough, I think the only one I could make and it's obviously it's not a 1-to-1 comparison, but a middle linebacker. Those are the only guys that I would say is comparable to a quarterback because they essentially are the quarterback of the defense. They have
That's
to
fair.
see everything and be able to put everybody in place,
Yeah.
you know. But I get exactly what you mean, though, especially like, the way that quarterbacks are framed, they are literally the face of a franchise.
Yeah.
You are the face of the organization. You are the guy. They give you the keys to the organization.
So you know what? Well, let's pivot because you just brought something up that was interesting, and I had a conversation with Bryce about the other day, talking about the face of a franchise and the quarterback, and a draft stock that has taken a hit in the last few weeks of Shador Sanders. What do you think about all of his, just social media and I
his
don't know. He
social
kind of got
media
into it with,
and
one of his former teammates.
I hate to say it, a little bit of overexposure. Because I don't like I always say, we should not know these people nearly as well as we do. You know, uh, I feel like a lot of stuff should be left to like fun facts or have a air of some
Yes,
mysteriousness to
dude, I thought about you last night. I was watching Terrence Howard on Joe Rogan, and
it.
literally the
Oh man,
first thing this man started off with was he has memories of being in the womb and being birthed and stuff. And I thought, man, Ray's so right. We just should not know some things about people of what they have to say sometimes. Like,
yeah. Even though you know what's the funny part, I got to listen to a little bit of that as well, and like I mean, outside of some of the woo woo kind of cuckoo stuff he was saying, a lot of it like kind of I don't know, it sounded right. Like I won't say sounded right, but
yeah,
it sounded
no.
like he at least he had
Oh,
enough
oh,
evidence to back up what he was saying.
yeah, I was just gonna say I agree. I had to turn it off because I was like, it's too late, and I don't have the brain capacity to process this right now.
Yeah.
Like,
Nah, yeah, like if you're not listening to that with like fresh brain, like I'm talking about, like you only been up like an hour or two. Boy, that is some dense stuff to try to get through.
no, that's a
He's talking.
fact.
This man is talking about the tree of life and divine mathematics and things like that. I'm like, hold on, brother. I wanted some laughs and just a decent conversation.
I was not prepared for this.
Yeah,
Like,
now I
not
got to
what I came in
contemplate
here for.
everything. Like, oh my God, I sleep in a 12 by 6 bed. Oh my God, if you do the math on that, that ends up, 12 plus 6 is 18. I turned 18 in a bed like this. Oh my God, like, I don't need to be spiraling like this at, midnight, my brother. I'm
No,
gonna
that's a
do that
fact.
when I wake up tomorrow. But
Literally where I was last night. Like I was just like, all right,
no,
I gotta turn this off.
all
But
right,
getting
man.
back to what we were talking about, just because not only, all the antics online, but that team went 4-8 last year.
4-8. And the funny part is when they were going against like actual ranked opponents, they kind of showed their true colors. Now I can't, obviously that was an incomplete team. That was a new team that was still kind of being put together. They're not like a Power Five organization. I get it, right? They're not blue bloods, understandable, but you're making a lot of demands just to kind of seem like a Michael Penix light,
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah.
I can't play for a cold team. I won't. Not even I can't. I won't play for a cold team. Like, buddy, like you don't really have that much control. Like, what's my man's name? Caleb Williams. He's supposed to be generation, right? And he didn't really get to choose where he went. He had to go to, Chicago. Like that, I don't think that would have been his first choice.
Yeah.
So,
No, that's the truth.
and especially with the way that everybody just drafted quarterbacks this past draft, man, I don't see him going for a premium if he decides to come out next year. I think he might want to play, 2 more years because then at that point, a lot of guys will be close to the end of their contracts. They'll be ready to move on and bring in some new blood. You might have to sit behind somebody, but yeah, next year it would not be in his best interest to go for the draft, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. And I mean, just going to Colorado, I mean, they did go from a 1-win season to a 4-win season. So they did technically upgrade, which it's just the microscope they were under, the hype that they came into the season. I mean, I don't like, that was part of getting me back into college football last year. Like, I've kind of watched Mizzou the last couple of years. I watched just about a little bit of every single Mizzou game last year. But like when it began, like I remember being super hyped for that. I think it was Colorado and TCU that they, played in the kickoff game. And I remember being hyped about that for a few weeks. And, it seemed like all of the hype around Colorado died off around, a couple months in or so once they hit that first loss. And, they ended up going 4-8. So, I mean, absolutely a work in progress, like you said. But, to just be off the field and maneuvering the way he's maneuvering to be like, well, your team was only 4-8 last year. Like, yeah, you had a great
Yeah,
season. I think it was like 30 touchdowns, three interceptions, um, 3,000 plus passing yards. I mean, he had a great year. But what are you gonna turn that into winning? Like, what does it really matter? It's like, um, when I almost brought this up, we had enough to talk about today, but there was a stat I saw a picture of comparing Patrick Mahomes to Tom Brady in their first same amount of years, and Patrick Mahomes
Mm,
statistically blows Tom Brady out of the water in every single category, but like what do we and Mahomes is on track, right? But with the three rings already, but at the same time, what really matters? We're in a different day and age, so you kind of got to look at those numbers,
a little
through
differently.
through a lens, because like I feel like the average Chiefs fan would just like throw that out, and I almost sent it to you just to bait you and be like, let's talk about this. And because my opinion is not what you would think it would be, I don't think, just because I don't see that as like, I think most people would be like, oh, Patrick Mahomes is just so much better. And it's like, well, he's got the potential to be, right? He's got the potential. But right now, what are we talking about? We're talking about what, 10 rings
Yeah.
to three? I mean, you can't really like we can compare the sample sizes. And I did this on my last Chiefs podcast where the Chiefs right now, the run they're on is better than the two Patriots runs individually. But once you put that together, like, what are we talking about? Like, like
Funny
it's cool.
enough, I hate to say it, I think the older I get, the more I'm going to at least attempt to put a little more respect on some of these guys' names, because I kind of look at it in terms of like, like inflation, right?
Exactly, exactly. The passing game has seen inflation. Absolutely.
Like, we're printing passing stats at this point. You know what I'm saying? It
And
has
I
no
don't even mean to
cinema
slander
cost.
Drew Brees like this, but the fact sometimes when Drew Brees and they try to say that's like a top five all time, I'm just like, I I like Drew Brees, but as a court, I don't know. Like I wouldn't have went one or two. If you say, "Hey, you're starting an NFL franchise in 2010, what quarterback do you want?" Drew Brees does not come to the top of my list like anywhere. I mean, you got Brady, Manning, Rodgers, maybe then Brees, and maybe I'm being disrespectful right now, but I don't know.
I say you said maybe Breeze. I feel like Breeze is like an easy choice. Like after those like three guys.
Yeah, I no, fair enough, because I just couldn't think of anyone else off the top of my head.
Yeah,
So Brees
because I
is
would
your
say who you
four.
gonna say? Phil Rivers. Who you gonna say? Eli.
No, I started thinking that, and I was like, Phil Rivers was literally the next guy that came into my head, and I
I
thought,
know.
okay, yep, no, he's four.
I
He's
would say
definitely
yeah.
four.
I would say yeah. We reaching slanderous, opinions at that
Absolutely.
point.
But if you're only number four in your generation, like you can't be top five all time. Maybe
You know.
top 10 all time. Maybe.
Yeah. I'm gonna say. I mean, shoot. If we start going further back, because like I said, uh, what's his name? What's his name? Always holds a real special place in my part. Dan Marino.
Yes. And I feel
Because
like
like
them
yeah,
two are I just see them in the same light. Even though Drew Brees did win a championship, he only won the one, but it's just like it almost felt like every single year Drew Brees was getting beat in the playoffs somehow.
nah, that's fair, bro.
So,
And I think that's kind of like a fair assessment too. Like, field general, cannon for him. Well, I can't really put that on Breeze because like, it was always the noodle on what's the name? Allegations put on him. He beat him a few times, but there was, there's still some evidence out there. But yeah, like, really good guys, statistician like winners, or it's not winners, but like yeah, like on stat side, they're stacked, but just the the big wins is what I'm really trying to get at. The big wins is kind of what they missing at.
yeah, no, that's a fact.
But
Well,
yeah,
I think that that pretty much sums it up for this one. We went pretty long on this one. I appreciate you stopping by and appreciating your time on the podcast, man.
oh yeah, no problem, man. No, I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So until next time, we'll see Ray again. Again, appreciate Ray's time here on the podcast, joining us this week. Awesome to get guests on the podcast. It makes my job doing this a little bit easier, right? Not having to fill all the time and getting other people's perspective as well on the podcast. And for me, that's always awesome. And I hope for you as the audience also enjoys that. So leave a comment below. Tell us what you're thinking about running back conversations around their contract structures and things like that, as well as Justin Jefferson. Is he going to sign a new deal before the season starts? Wasn't at OTAs. See how far that goes throughout the offseason. We'll keep you posted all offseason, especially with the Chiefs. Obviously, you can always expect more Chiefs-centric content from your boy Papa Show right here. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, smash that like button, as well as follow along on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. And until next time, we'll see you on the other side.